Hey Ding Dongs, I'm Jamie.
I'm Richard.
And this is Explain It to Jamie, the political comedy podcast in which I, Jamie, a politically innocent but curious young man, have the complicated political happenings of the world explained to me by my political savvy friend, Richard Lamb.
In actual truth, I'm just an astrologer. You know, the only reason I know about these things is I'm fucking tuned into where Jupiter is. I'm like, Jupiter's in retrograde.
Yeah, we got three bowls with different different kinds of tea leaves.
Yeah, there's a fucking eagle just sliced open. I threw it at the wall.
Yeah, the blood splatter.
It looks like Donald Trump screaming into a pile of money.
Yeah, and that's
still
how
interpreting
we know
that
we are in the end times.
That's right. That's right.
The
augur is bad. It foretells doom. Yeah.
No, he's a smart man.
I mostly just Google things.
And this week we are tackling the topic I want explained to me: weed legalization in Canada.
Oh shit!
Yes, the days are upon us.
That's right.
The time is nigh.
That's right.
It is happening.
For those who aren't dialed into Canadian legislature, the Trudeau government has said they are going to legalize marijuana in 2018. The bill's on the table. It's happening.
Didn't they put the bill on the table on April 20th?
I believe they did, or at least they planned the unveiling for April 20th.
Yeah, that was real cheeky.
Yeah.
I appreciated that. A little bit of sense of humor in our...
That's because April 20th is 420 in the date form, which is a popular mnemonic among stoners, although its origin is disputed and no one knows exactly where it comes from.
Oh, thanks for joining us, Simon, the stereotypical cartoon nerd.
Well, yeah, you're welcome. That was just me. I was just doing... That's what I sound like.
Right.
Yeah, sure, we'll call him Simon. Yeah, Simon.
Simon, the stereotypical cartoon nerd.
Yeah. Fuck that guy. Everyone knows you can't learn shit from science. The only place you can learn things is how a bird's guts fall out of its body when you stab it with a magic knife.
That's right. Or if your parents told it to you when you were young and you believe it forever.
Yeah, that's right. That's the other way. Or if it just feels right.
Yeah,
if it feels right inside you.
Yeah. I want legalization of weed explained to me, Richard.
Cool. Why is that, Jamie?
Well, obviously, as always, it's in the news. It's also, it's one of those things that it feels like if someone who believed autism was caused by vaccines finally came around and was like, oh, I guess not. And you're like, yeah, duh.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
You fucking idiot.
Yeah, what the fuck?
Welcome to the fucking party, asshole.
Yeah, it just feels so late. I'm like,
get ready to. You're about to learn some things.
Yeah, it's just it seems so silly and, yeah. Anyway, yeah, it seems really late.
Yeah.
So I'd like
why
to know.
now? What's going on?
Why now? What's going on? I also, as much as I may legalize it. What a good idea. Mm-hmm. I'm also not fully in the party of weed is good for you.
Yeah, of course.
So I'd like to, I'd like to delve into that a little bit as well.
Great.
And yeah.
Okay, well let's
light the
spark this fucking huge ass bowl we have packed
and get going.
Oh yes, that's such tasty cannabis.
Play the theme song. Woo! Let's clear the smoke out of here.
Man.
Oh man!
Oh, where did this van come from?
It's got a fur-clad Viking woman riding a saber-toothed tiger down a thunderbolt from a rainbow cloud.
Oh, everything in here feels so. Oh, the textures and the colors are all so vivid.
Man, I just feel like watching Inception again.
Yeah, that's such a good movie. It makes so much sense. Okay, no, we're not actually high. We're just sitting in a room.
That's right.
Role playing.
We're high on our friendship.
That's right.
Yeah.
And on education.
Yeah, and LSD. Strap in. It's going to be a wild 10-hour episode.
Episode of what?
Episode of, you ever look at your fingers? Think, did you ever see them fing?
No.
Oh,
there
they
go.
go.
Okay, no, seriously.
Yeah.
So, Jamie, what do you know about the Canadian government's plan to legalize marijuana?
Okay, I do know that because Justin Trudeau is a left-wing pinko commie who's trying to take over our country and our children's minds, that under legalized marijuana, we can all look forward to a equilibrium-esque dystopia in which we are all forced
mandatory weed,
to
mandatory gay marriage.
Forced to eat hash brownies every morning.
Yeah.
Marry
a new person of the same sex.
Every afternoon.
Yeah.
And only climax in sodomy.
Yeah, that's right.
Well,
that's correct.
Yeah.
Clearly, you've kept up with the news. No.
I have. Mostly, I just watched Equilibrium recently.
Okay, so the Canadian government is going to legalize marijuana. It's been a very long time coming. I'll get straight into first let's get into just what the plan is. So the plan is, it's actually sort of hilarious. Like when you I looked at the kind of government, it's not the full bill, but it's like a detailed summary of what the bill is going to be. And there's 7 major bullet points about what they're trying to do. And 6 of them have negative, like, sound bad.
Oh.
You know, like 6 of them are all about like weed sounding bad, and one of them is and literally number 6 is like allow adults to recreationally use marijuana, and then everything else is like protect youth from access to marijuana, like severely increase penalties for impaired driving, you know, for marijuana, like increase police abilities to test and screen for marijuana, you know, things like that. So they're taking and obviously this is a political tactic to, you know, dull the blow for those people who are perhaps emotionally opposed to marijuana legalization, to make it sound as though they're acting in the public safety, which they are super conscientious of. So what they're doing is they're making it legal for any adult person to possess up to 30 grams of dried cannabis. You're also allowed to grow up to four plants at home that are up to a meter tall, for your own use. You're allowed to make
up to a meter tall.
Yeah, that's what it says.
Come on.
Yeah,
that's silly though, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean that's pretty big. That's a fucking big ass weed plant.
Yeah, but what are you gonna like? The police bust into your house and they like measure it, and you're like, it was. I swear, it was under a meter this afternoon. You know what I think the issue here is?
What?
It's a plant, and it doesn't give a shit how big you'd like it to be.
Yeah, that's right. Well, you know what's gonna happen. You know there's gonna be some fucking nerd whose job it is to come in and tape measure the weed, and then the government's gonna fucking like hedge clip the top off it, and those dudes will be fucking smoking that shit.
Those guys are gonna be the new like parking attendants.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like where everybody's kind of like, you fucking dick, and they're like, I'm just doing my job. This job has good benefits.
Yeah.
My job is to give out tickets for 2 tall weed plants.
Yeah. But think about this. Like, I mean, a huge part of what they're doing, and let's continue on, they're going to make it, you know, legal to operate, to sell marijuana products probably out of, they're leading up to the provinces to decide exactly how the products are sold, right? So, and they're also leading up to the provinces to decide what the age of consumption, the legal age of consumption, is going to be. The federal government recommends 18, going off of obviously the age of majority.
I guess drinking.
Exactly, drinking ages. It's similar to alcohol. Drinking ages by province. So they're going off the age of majority, the age of tobacco use, the age of voting. Yeah, but it's up to the provinces to decide. And as we know, as 2 dudes who have both lived in Alberta and Ontario, provinces sell alcohol in radically different ways. So, you know, conceivably, we'll see all the different gamut of options for how to sell weed, like, you know, the government weed store, the WCBO, and then probably, you know, a place like Alberta might legalize private dispensaries and things like that. Right. There's also they've increased. They have pretty severe penalties that they're putting in place for giving weed to minors.
Yeah, it's like 15 years.
14 years in
14
jail is the
years.
maximum sentence,
Yeah.
which is very harsh. And they also have created some of the harshest impaired driving laws in the world. So there's like mandatory fines if you get caught with a certain amount of THC in your blood or alcohol. They are changing the drunk driving laws at the same time as they're changing the weed laws. So they're rolling it into one big reform. They're also giving cops the ability to, without having like reasonable proof that you're high, if they just suspect that you're high, to do a saliva check roadside if they think you might be high. And if the saliva check tests positive, they have the right to make you come in for a blood test right there. Which is very hard line.
Yeah.
And also it's not clear how they're going to get how cops are going to get trained to use the saliva testers, which are themselves not considered the most reliable thing and which many people do not know how to use.
Well, I assume the saliva test is just them kissing you on the mouth.
Yeah, and seeing how weedy it tastes. they're like and then they're like, oh, that's dank
Like,
as
that's-
shit.
yeah,
You're
that's-
going to the clink, you fucking criminal. What else is going on with the weed? Oh yeah, there's also just a lot of other things to protect minors. Like, for example, you can't advertise weed anywhere where a minor might see it, which means you can basically only advertise in like bars and casinos and stuff like that. Sure. Which is fair. I think people think
I
that's
don't
fair.
know that weed needs much advertising.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
I guess there'll be.
You think of how much
with
beer
privatization,
advertising,
there'd be
but
new brands.
it's not
and
so much
stuff.
about like, hey, did you know there's weed, as opposed to exactly brands
Yeah.
competing with each other and stuff like that.
Yeah. Like
Also,
Papa Trudeau's ganja.
yeah.
Palace or whatever.
Yeah, and you can't make marijuana like packaging that is marketed to children. So you can't have like cartoon animals on it. You can't have testimonials from kids.
Right.
And
Same
stuff.
with cigarettes
It's
and
like
beer and
exactly
stuff
like
like that.
cigarettes. What are the other interesting things of this? Oh yeah, edibles are still not legal to sell.
Right.
They're going to decide on that later. Although it is okay for you to take weed and make edibles. That's specifically said to be legal.
Right.
Privately, if you may do that. And there's this other funny detail in the bill that says if a province decides not to like legalize weed for themselves, they have the right to do that, but then all the people in that province will have the ability to like access an online federal weed marketplace and get their weed shipped to them by mail.
Right. Right. So it's really hard to control.
Yeah. So like even if a province is like, we're not going to open the weed board of Nova Scotia, then the federal government will just sell weed to people there.
Right. Let's face it, though.
Yeah.
Nova Scotia opening that weed board.
Yeah, and a huge amount of what they're talking about with why they're doing this is because of they're trying to get money out of organized crime and basically into the system, right?
For
they
sure.
want people to. They want this money. It's a multi-billion-dollar industry every year, and they want it to be taxed. They want
wasn't
it to.
Colorado's like last year like 5.6 billion
Yeah,
or something like that. Like
yeah.
crazy.
Young people apparently in Canada also use it. They smoke a shitload of weed. Like 1 in 5 teenagers and 1 in 3 people in their early 20s in Canada smoke weed.
I don't know anybody that smokes weed.
No, me neither. I mean, that's why it was so shocking to me. But you and I hanging out. I mean, we meet so many people at our church group. I don't know. I don't know how these people.
That's true.
So many people
and all of them,
smoking weed.
yeah, clean as the day they were born.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's a big part of what the rationale behind it is. And, there's a lot, I'm sure, as you know, you probably do know this, and many people probably know this, but it's worth saying. Marijuana compared to other legal things like alcohol and tobacco has like a much lower profile series of health risks associated with it. It's not as bad for your lungs as tobacco. It's not nearly as addictive as tobacco or alcohol. People tend to not react to it in such harmful ways as like they react to alcohol. Like, some people just go crazy when they drink. Some people go blackout. They become aggressive. That kind of thing generally doesn't happen with weed, and it's very, very hard to overdose on weed, and will probably be a lot easier to manage your dose of weed when everything is tested and controlled by the government and approved and regulated, right?
Yeah.
So like when you're buying weed, you know how strong it is and what you're getting and stuff
I
like
do
that.
know people. Okay, I'm going to admit right now, I was lying before when I said I don't know anybody that smokes weed. I was joking, everybody. I was joking. But I do know people that do react badly to weed. But not in the same way.
Yeah,
that
you don't
people I know
rage
that
out.
react badly to alcohol, like rage out, become a different person,
Yeah,
break
exactly.
stuff.
You might get paranoid, yeah.
and freak out and need
That
to
was
go to
just
the
a guess
hospital.
that I made because I don't know anyone who smokes weed.
That's right.
Even though we definitely have not already told stories about when we were near some people smoking weed on this podcast, including people having a bad reaction to weed.
Right.
That definitely never happened in episode 8, the Obamacare episode.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So don't go check that
Don't
out.
go listen to that.
Please go check it out.
Please do
listen
to
it.
that. It's a good episode.
Listen to it, share it.
Yeah, so it's just, there's just a series of, it doesn't really make logical sense that weed was outlawed. Right. Like it was never clear why it was outlawed, because it just, its use is really widespread in our culture. Mm-hmm. It's not as harmful as things that are legal, and in our current situation, like young people are still getting it. People have no trouble getting it generally, and all the money goes to crime. Right, that's like kind of the current system, and that's the rationale for legalizing it now.
Right.
Now, I got curious, and I was like, I wonder what was the deal with Canada making it criminal. Mm-hmm. And I found one of the most shocking stories I've ever found in my life. Get this: Canada criminalized marijuana in 1923. They attached it to the same bill that criminalized opium and heroin, but nobody knows why. It appears to have been edited in late, this one sentence that just says, and also cannabis indica is also criminal. And there was never debate on it. There was no evidence submitted as part of this bill for why it should be considered criminal. There was no proof whatsoever that there was a social problem with people smoking weed. And actually, weed use was very, very minimal, and it was not widely used at all in Canada in the 1920s. It just seems like somebody heard about it. It was in international, policy talk. People were talking about this drug, and they just threw it on there. They didn't even debate it.
Interesting.
And that because of that, weed has been legal in Canada since 1923.
I wonder, and this is total speculation, but I wonder, because cannabis is used for a lot of stuff.
That's right,
outside of getting people high. Mm-hmm. And I wonder, well, no, this is absolutely completely speculation, but I would wonder if, because it's such a common plant that they use for other stuff, if people go, even if it's not socially relevant now, if they go back in 1925 or whatever,
right,
that they go, yeah, but the plant is everywhere.
Right.
So if it's a drug like opium or heroin, it's so readily available.
Yeah, it could just be like a hypothetical moral panic.
Yeah.
That's true. What's interesting is the records don't exist. We have no idea what was said at these parliamentary hearings, and or if there even was one. Right. Also, I mean, like a couple years before that, in I think the 1920, codeine had been outlawed, but then right after that, doctors successfully lobbied to get it re-legalized because they saw its medicinal value. So there was like scientific inquiry and discourse about what drugs should and should not be legal at this time. So it's weird that for some reason marijuana just got in there. Like it's very strange. Compare that to America, where marijuana criminalization was like just a straight up racist issue that had to do with people being angry about
black people.
And being angry about the Depression. So marijuana was criminalized in America in 1933. During the Great Depression, when people were looking for lots of scapegoats, essentially, and it was used to demonize Mexican people. The use of the term marijuana as opposed to cannabis comes from this time to make it sound all Mexican. And like literally, this is a quote so ridiculous that I have to actually just read it because I could not make this up. Right. This guy's name was Henry Anslinger. He was one of the main voices in America for criminalization of marijuana in the 1930s. This is literally what he said. This is real.
Lay it down.
There are 100,000 total marijuana smokers in the U.S., and most are Negroes, Hispanics, Filipinos, and entertainers. Their satanic music, jazz, and swing result from marijuana usage. This marijuana causes white women to seek sexual relations with Negroes, entertainers, and any others.
Wow.
That was what that was
Just
about.
pass that right along. That's going straight to the top, sir.
Just really make that clear. Like, let's
Stamp
not
that
mince any words
into
about
law.
what the deal is here.
Yeah, I guess that's very, oh my gosh, that's really fucked.
So that's fucked. But then comparatively, it's weird that in Canada there's no justification at all.
Right.
And so we just had this law in the books. it always seemed weird, right? Like the second when you're a kid and you're in a scholarly research paper, you're reading about weed and learning about it for the first time, and you're totally not being introduced to it by other people who smoke weed, and you're totally not smoking it yourself. But when you start thinking about weed when you're a teenager, you're like, why is it illegal? Right? Why can we drink and smoke cigarettes? Cigarettes are super horrible for you in a huge ton of ways, but why can't we smoke marijuana? It doesn't make sense, and the truth is, it never made sense. There was never sense made in Canada. So in a way, this law is a return to a bit of sanity, which is welcome.
Right. Okay. Wow. Well, yeah, that's always sort of been my issue. Obviously, I think that's everybody's issue. Is like, what's the big deal?
Yeah. And that's kind of it, right? It's like, if you're going to let this other stuff be legal, why not weed? I mean, weed's not, I don't think it's inherently good. No, it's an intoxicant. You shouldn't drive while you smoke it. Apparently, there's tons of people who think that it's okay to smoke weed and drive, which is, I think that's objectively untrue.
Yeah. I was watching, like, I shouldn't even cite these because I have no idea the bias in them. But I was watching these videos where they were testing people driving while drunk and testing people in a safe condition, and we're testing people driving while on weed. They did test like more dangerous on alcohol, but they weren't better drivers, quote unquote, when they were on weed. They were like very, very cautious, like illegally slow. In fact,
right.
Drunk drivers tended to be more brash in this test that I was watching, and the weed drivers tended to be like way too cautious, like not aggressive enough.
I just think that like our road situation, it does not have me in the place where I'm like, let's just throw some intoxicated people in there. It can handle it. It generally runs pretty well. Like I think it's fucking dangerous as shit on the road.
Yeah, my 9 a.m. commute every day is like hellish. If you just
intersperse like some stone, I mean, there definitely are some stone people in there, but if you just really dropped in some stone people into everyone's morning commute, I don't think it would be a good thing.
Yeah, I was watching Bill Maher, and they were on the topic, and there was a neuroscientist, and his concern with it, and this is sort of my concern with it too, is that there's not, because it's been illegal so long, and been out of the conversation, there's not a ton of tests on like how it affects people long term, about like what extended and like high volume use does to you, and he was like pro legalization, but he was like, I'd like to see it legalized, but honestly, I'd like to see the legal limit be 25, because that's when your brain stops developing.
That's interesting,
and we don't know what it does to your brain.
Yeah, I've seen scientific, not consensus, but a lot of evidence that in a fully grown adult, there's not a lot of super serious effects to kind of casual use, but there is definitely noted effects in like developing brains, which is I think why the Canadian government's put so much focus on keeping it away from young people. And in Colorado, they found that the usage rate among young people dropped after legalization. It did successfully drop, and it was easier to regulate and keep track of and things like that.
That's very interesting.
Yeah. I mean, generally speaking, like, there was prohibition in the 20s in America. And so we have that example to look back at, and prohibition was like a massive failure. Like all that happened with prohibition was all the money went into crime. People like had unregulated alcohol, so people would go blind and shit because it was badly fermented, and the amount of drinking actually went up an enormous amount.
Right. Now, here's an interesting question, and this is going to be, again, speculation. But in prohibition, one of the reasons that alcohol stayed illegal for so long was because organized crime was influencing politics to keep it illegal.
Right.
And I wonder if there's anything there of, maybe not, but like marijuana's been illegal for a long fucking time, and everyone's like, what's taking so long? Nobody seems to really have it as an issue. I guess
that's a good question.
I wonder if there is influence there. I mean, also, I guess, and I'd be generalizing if I said, well, but right-wing parties tend to be more against it. And I suppose you don't want to lose your old people base.
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, we don't have the same conversations about organized crimes being enmeshed with political power in Canada, except in places like, I think they do have that in Montreal,
Yeah.
like the mob and politics were kind of intertwined. I don't think we have that. I mean, obviously fucking Rob Ford was smoking crack with some gangster dudes or something like that.
Yeah,
Maybe I'm wrong about this, but like, I don't think we have those same enmeshments of power, or at least they're much, much, much less public than they are in other places.
Right.
But it's a good question. But I mean, now the legalization is going forward, and what's to stop all those organized crime people from opening their own weed stores if that's the way that people end up going on it?
Right.
Yeah.
Wow, interesting.
It'll be a really interesting time of change. I mean, we already lived through the great Toronto dispensary boom, which was like
Yeah.
last year when the government announced that they were planning to introduce legislation this year about the weed legalization. On my block in Kensington Market, there were literally 9 dispensaries. And I think
Yeah.
70 or 80 opened in Toronto within a few months.
Remember, yeah, I think it was like beginning of the summer last year, and we know, you and I noticed that they were popping up more and more. And I asked my buddy, who is an old drug dealer. He used to deal in a little bit harder stuff than he started with weed, then sold harder stuff. And I said, I was like, how is this legal? Because he's my expert on that kind of thing. And he said, oh, it's not. It's absolutely not. He knows a couple people who started dispensaries, and he said the reason that it's happening is because the government has announced that they're gonna do it. That takes all pressure off of law enforcement from enforcing it, and so everybody is kind of just taking a lead off the base a little bit. You know, they're like, because everyone wants to be first to market.
Right.
Because first to market, traditionally gets about 50% of the market share.
Right.
So everybody wants to be the first big dispensary in Eastern Canada. So everybody's like renting these things, you know, making it look as legal as you can.
Yeah, which we've now learned is a dangerous game if Ontario goes the same way as their liquor controls and makes the government the only supplier.
For sure.
Which is what they do with liquor, right? And the liquor laws here suck.
Yes, they do.
Oh, they're brutal.
Yeah, better get your booze before 8 p.m. on a weekday.
Yeah, that's right.
Or
you better please the
thirsty.
LCBO overlord, or else it'll shun you.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, I mean, it'll be a
Here we
massive
are.
time of change. I think it's a good decision, but like I think a lot of people, I feel kind of hot and cold about it. And honestly, like, I have purchased a little bit of marijuana in my day, and since the dispensaries have opened in Toronto and it's been so available, I've kept a little bit around, but I haven't really used it that much. It's not. I'm not obsessed with it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, it is interesting because I've likewise I've enjoyed weed in the past.
Yeah.
But since it's become so available, I guess I'm also older than I used to be. Surprise, surprise. But since it's become so available, it has lost a little bit of the fun.
Right.
Because before you're engaging in this shady activity that's not as bad as the government says it is, and that, and everybody knows it, but it's still against the law, and you want to be undercover. Not to say that's the only reason people smoke weed, but like it.
But it's like when you're a teenager, and that's a huge part of it, right? It's like a thrill. You feel like you're rebelling. You feel like it's part of the culture. To separate it from our learned experience of it is going to be weird. It's going to be a big cultural shift, and then it'll be, I guess, normal.
Yeah.
That'll be weird.
That's and that's another one of those funny things that makes you feel a bit old. It's like kids being born this time next year will never know the country of Canada without having legalized weed.
That's weird.
And like 16-year-olds weren't alive when September 11th happened.
Yeah.
And we remember what it was like not to have the internet in our house. Oh, sorry, I'm losing my buzz.
Yeah.
Have you ever thought about how big the universe is?
Oh my
man?
God. Or what if the universe is actually just one cell in a massive organism?
Yeah, man, we can only perceive what light touches, dude.
Elon Musk thinks we're all in a simulation.
I don't know if you did any reading on like the actual medical use of it.
Only a little bit.
Yeah.
And the law says they're just going to keep the system that we have now. So you can register a medical marijuana card with your physician the way that you do now, and then you can receive it from like licensed medical dispensaries. I think the way that you can now. That's their intention.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Is there? I wonder, is it covered under healthcare, like that kind of thing?
I doubt it.
You doubt it?
I doubt it would be, because, well, that'll be each province will decide if marijuana is covered under healthcare. I don't actually know if any provinces currently cover marijuana under healthcare. I'll check that and I'll double dip it.
Yeah.
But each province has their own health plan, so it would be up to them individually to decide whether that could be included or not. I mean, like, its use in treating anxiety and post-traumatic stress and pain associated with cancer treatment and nausea associated with chemotherapy and things like that. Those are big health benefits that I think that I'm sure people are very excited to be able to just access freely without jumping through all the hoops. I was just thinking, I have like, I'm wondering about this sort of central philosophical thing where, what freaks me out about marijuana, and always kind of has freaked me out about marijuana, is that like it's a pleasant experience, certainly, and there's times when I've liked to use it and then do things. I've liked to use it and write stuff, or I've liked to use it and you alter your perception. It's a drug like any other. But the way that it makes you okay with your life and okay with doing nothing and stuff like that can be a dangerous thing. It can be abused. Sure. People abuse it, and the government is apparently going to do a lot of like information campaigns along with legalization about intoxicated driving, about its effects in developing brains and things like that. So I hope it doesn't ruin Canadian culture. I don't think it will. I don't see it happening.
I sincerely don't think it will. In fact, I think the legalization will, because it's such a thing. I'm actually excited for people to stop talking about it.
Fuck yeah.
You know what I mean?
Exactly. That's kind of where it is at the end of the day. Who cares?
Yeah, exactly. It's become such a like lifestyle issue. Like, this is my lifestyle, and like this is so like people putting weed flags on their walls and like really championing this cause, that I'm looking forward to that sort of passing of being it just being another drug that you can buy legally and use responsibly. If you don't use it responsibly, you'll have to pay some penalties. Yeah. And
I think that's totally reasonable.
You know what I mean?
And then we can talk about stuff like, like the oil industry, which is going to kill us all. Those are the real issues that we need to talk about. Like weed, when the verdict is so on so much of it, and the reason for making it illegal in the first place is so flimsy and makes no sense, and it doesn't even really exist. Right. Like, let's just strike this blow for common sense governing and legalize the damn thing, right?
Totally. Yeah. Here's a question. I mean, I might be able to just answer it right away, but if the standard for legalizing things is it's not as bad as drinking and tobacco, where does that leave us on like other drugs?
That's a good question.
Is it like should we go, well, let's legalize cocaine and mushrooms?
I doubt cocaine would get legalized, and because cocaine was made illegal in the same package of bills as marijuana in 1923, and there's like tons of good science about making cocaine illegal. Like cocaine is super addictive and has super high health impact and is dangerous in a way that like even tobacco tobacco will slowly kill you and is incredibly addictive, but cocaine is like, it's like an incredibly powerful short-term thing that's incredibly easy to get addicted to. And here's a big one, like you can't grow cocaine in Canada. Right. You have to import it from South America. Maybe if you could grow cocaine in Canada, the government could be convinced to have that conversation, but money talks, right? Like Canada is an exporter of marijuana. They are interested in legitimizing it, because if right now the new marijuana bill makes it illegal to move marijuana across an international border. You can't take it to the States. You can only keep it in Canada. But I wonder if the government, I mean, Trump is really hostile to marijuana legalization, but 8 states legalized in the last American election in November. Like 8 states legalized. Colorado's got it legalized, Washington, Oregon, California, I think. Right. Maybe not. I might be wrong about California. But like, I think the government's looking at that long game and saying, if we can start international trade in marijuana, like Canada's going to be an agricultural producer of marijuana, like BC Bud, man, it's famous for a reason.
Yeah. Isn't that interesting? Wow. Great.
Yeah.
Well, great.
I mean, this is a short but sweet one. I feel like it's a clear episode.
Yeah, man. Short but fucking skunky.
Just like these 4 joints I have in each finger right now that I'm going to hit as an octo hit.
Oh. Richard, you look so cool.
Thanks, man. Kids, abuse weed. Smoke too much of it. Don't listen to the government. Smoke weed and drive. Drop out of school.
Richard, you're going to get a
You can smoke anything that you want. Anything's a drug. Roll your shirt up and fucking hit that thing. Don't let the government tell you what to do. I say you could drive 100 times better if you smoke 100 joints than if you don't.
Richard, no.
That's Richard science.
No, Richard.
Listen to me.
No. What's that at the door? Bum, 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 bum. Oh, police! Open the door!
Oh no, Jamie, you gotta get rid of him, man. This weed plant is 1.2 meters tall.
I would.
I can't go to jail again, Jamie.
But I was never here, and I disappear into weed smoke.
Oh my god! Oh, my fingers are figging so hard right now. Okay, well, what a good time we've had.
Yeah.
Kids, don't do the things I just said. Or, I don't know, do them. Whatever. I'm not your fucking dad. Justin Trudeau's your dad, not me.
Yeah, we're just here to provide you with information and some shallow jokes.
And occasional extremely bad advice as a joke, presented as a joke. Yeah,
that's right. No, everyone should be responsible, and I'm looking forward to it being legalized, to the big boom that I'm sure is going to happen, and then the steady normalization and
it's going to be like Facebook. It's going to be lame.
Right.
Eventually, I bet.
Absolutely.
The kids will be like, "Oh, you smoke weed?"
Yeah, how lame are you loser?
Yeah. Everyone else we're all punching trees now. That's our drug. Those endorphins that come out of the trees into your hand.
Well, I think this is as good a place as any to call it. How do you feel?
I say, let's stub out this roach of an episode and save it for later.
Oh, Richard.
I'm sorry,
So
I'm a narc.
So uncool.
I am a narc.
Guys, if you like this episode, share it around. If you want to engage in the conversation, whether you're going to correct us or add something for yourself, or you want us to hit something in our double dip, hit us up on Gmail, explain it to Jamie at gmail.com, Facebook, explain it to Jamie, Twitter
at explain Jamie,
and I guess we have an Instagram too, at explain it to Jamie.
Yeah, explain it to Jamie on Instagram.
I don't know, if you Google us, you don't have to look very far.
No, it's very easy to find all our stuff.
But regardless, please share. We're burgeoning, but having a great fucking time.
That's right.
And we want to have a great fucking time with more people.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Until then, I've been Richard Chong Lam.
And I'm Jamie Cheech Kavanaugh. Explain it to Jamie.